Let's talk.
John Brown.
Now then, I've really been looking forward to this next interview because perhaps the lady I'm about to, the successful person I'm about to interview can point me in the right direction. How to Make Your First Million. Build Wealth with Style and Audacity is the new book from Maria Hatzistefanis, and I hope I said that correctly. It just goes to show, ladies and gentlemen, that when one door shuts, a whole new life can open up for you. I'm delighted to say that Maria joins me, taking time out of her busy schedule to join me today. Maria, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And let's talk about how to make a million.
Right. Okay. Fine. Which currency are we talking first of all? Because I could make $1 million drachma, probably if they were still doing. So what?
Oh my God. I'm glad you mentioned drachma because I'm originally from Greece.
Exactly.
And that's part of my story that I started from a very humble background. I worked as a freelance writer back in Greece, then studied business, moved to London and started a beauty brand called Rodial from a back room at home. That was over 25 years ago. And I've grew it over the years and I've made some other financial moves. And what I want to share in my book is how to make that first million. When you start from nothing, you're from a humble background, you can still make it, and have some practical advice.
Because one of the things that strikes me looking at your story is the fact that because our parents' generations, perhaps they had a job for life. You had a career. That was what you did. You didn't change. So you were an accountant or you were an architect, and that was it. But your journey, your trajectory has, when one thing stopped, you didn't just go, okay, well, it's over. I'm going to Greece or I'm going to do something else. I'll never make it. You picked yourself up, dusted yourself down, and you didn't have a wealthy family. You didn't have a trust fund. So how difficult was it for yourself to get yourself going again, Maria?
I'm glad you mentioned this. So my parents are both teachers. They're now retired. So I was raised in an environment where they wanted me to be a teacher and have a stable job for life and work for in a public position of the government, which is a lot of the European countries and parents and households push their children to. But I also had a vision that I wanted to lead an exciting life, and being a teacher just didn't sit well with me. Nothing wrong with teachers. It's just I wanted to do more with my life. As I said, after working freelance for a magazine, that was my first involvement with beauty. That was back in Greece. The business world was driving me. So moved to New York and I studied business. At that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I got a job in banking and corporate finance, and that job brought me to London. So this is why I'm suddenly based in London. I did that for a couple of years. It was exciting. It was a high-paid job, and that was driving me a lot. But a couple of years into it, I lost my interest, and very quickly I got fired. And, it was devastating. I was in my mid-20s and suddenly I had no job. And it was what I needed at the time to make me think, yes, I don't want to go and find another job in finance. This is not my path. What is it that I want to do? And that was the point that I decided I want to start my own business and I want to be in charge of my future.
And let's talk about some important things though, because you've got this high-powered job, and a lot of us get into finance, into banking, into real estate because they know they're going to make a lot of money if it all goes well. But that's the whole of the soul, Maria. You have to, and I'm not going to drop in words like passion or desire, but just getting the money at the end of the day. And people say, I'd rather be happy. I'd rather be sad in the Ferrari, but that's rubbish. I mean, you have to love what you do. You have to love your work so it doesn't become your work. So how did you decide on the thing that was going to drive you forward?
So after I got fired, I took some time off. A lot of people think that I got fired and the next day I'm starting in this new business and Rodial and I'm high powered, but it wasn't like that. I took a few months off where I was really just taking it all in and really reflecting on my life and what I wanted to do. And I would do things like go to a museum or go to a flea market and just be out there and just be with myself, define who I want to be going forward. And then it's sort of going back. When you take that time off and that quiet time, I went back to the days where I was working in the magazine and I was interviewing a lot of experts in the beauty industry and trying beauty products. And that was one of my happiest moments where I felt I was in my most creativity. And I said, I love that. I don't want to be a writer anymore. I moved on. I love business. So let's just put these two together and look at, is there a gap in the market? Is there anything new I can bring into the beauty world? I mean, don't forget, this was over 25 years ago. Now the beauty industry is oversaturated with tens of thousands of brands. But back in the day, it was just Estée Lauder, Lancôme, L'Oreal. There were 3 brands. There were no niche, interesting brands. So I launched Rodial at the time that nothing exciting was happening. So I think for me, the timing was interesting. There was genuinely a gap in the market for what I had in mind, which was targeted treatments to specific skin concerns. Using a family ingredient, a pomegranate, which is rodi in Greek. So that's where Rodial came about. And it was an ingredient my great grandmother used to use. So I thought, I'm going to put it in a range. It's a massive antioxidant. And I'm going to come up with a line. And honestly, I was very naive. If I was an employee at Estée Lauder or L'Oreal and knew what it takes to start and grow a business, I probably would never have done it. But coming into this clueless, I thought, how hard would it be? Let me do this. And it all started very small. I didn't have any investment. I had some savings, £20,000, and started from the back room at home. And the first few years, it was a one-woman show. I was doing everything from going to the factory. My storage area was a couple of cupboards in my home office. I was picking up calls, going to the store. I was doing everything. So it started really small. And a lot of people say, oh, did you ever think you would be a big brand? And the answer is no. I didn't know if I would be around for another week. So that's how it all started, very, very small.
So the book's called How to Make Your Million, How to Make Your Million. Is it important? Because we now live in an age with social media everywhere, and you cannot turn on your social media feeds, be it Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, without seeing some, 23-year-old in a Lamborghini or on a private jet saying, hey, I started my business last week and now I'm earning millions. And that is a false impression, isn't it? And also we get loads of people, loads of advice, quote unquote, saying, follow your dream, follow your passion. But you have to do that with real life, because if your dream is, you think the world should be full of, paintings of Natterjack toads, you might think that that's your dream and your passion, but the rest of the world will go, well, I can live without that. It may be your dream, but it's not realistic. So how much talking to yourself, Maria, did you have to do, and how much talking to yourself about the reality should somebody do starting a business?
I'm glad you mentioned about that overnight success, because that's the title of my first book, How to Be an Overnight Success, where on the first page I say it took me 18 years when I was writing the book to be where I am today. And people say, oh, you're an overnight success. And then going back to your point about a lot of people showing off and giving all this easy advice, it takes time. One of the secrets of my success is I never gave up. There were points, like literally, probably every year, a major challenge happens in my business. I almost went bankrupt a few years ago. I almost had a breakdown at some other point. So I've been through a lot, and I could have quit at any single point. And for me, having that persistence is more important than actually having the passion. And I do go, I've been to presentations, and it's very naive to think, oh, you follow your passion. As you say, you have to do your research. Are you filling a gap? Are you executing an idea better than someone else? Like, you really need to research and make sure whatever your passion is it a hobby, or is it going to be a profitable business? And these are both interesting things for anyone to pursue. But if you want it to be a business, you really need to do your research. You need to have the infrastructure. You need to be able to do everything at the beginning and be, wear 1,000 hats to make it happen. So, yeah, these are two different things. And
there's never a day off, is there, when you're starting a business? Because it's 24/7. You are the face. There's the glamorous bit, Yeah, but then there is where is my suppliers? Do I need a warehouse? What's my logistics like? I mean, this is what I call the grind. It's
100%, yeah. And at the beginning, I remember that I didn't know packaging, and I went and I got a few quotes to get my first packaging organized. I went with the cheapest one. And the boxes arrive. I remember I was actually traveling on business, and I get a phone call from the warehouse saying the bottles don't fit the box. The box came smaller. I don't know who messed it up at that point, but here I am. I picked the cheaper supplier because that's, I wanted to save money, and we had to redo the whole production with another company. So for me, there's so many mistakes that you make. And when you're starting a business, if you make a mistake, it costs you a few £1,000s. It is a big deal. It is a big deal. You can't ignore it, and then you're blaming yourself. So it's hard, and I had to learn the hard way. So it's not about necessarily working hard and working 24/7. It's about the mental capacity to go through disasters that will happen in the first few years, and then have the strength to say, okay, well, let's just take stock of this. We're going to make the money somewhere else. Let's move on. This is not the end of the world. I think it's more the mental piece that it's harder to get through rather than the actual hours of work.
And here's the thing, the mental piece, because we're all human, and congratulations on your success. But you've had rejections, you've had boxes that aren't the right size. When you're sitting at 3 a.m, in your room, in your hotel suite or whatever, do you have a family member, somebody to talk to? You didn't have a mentor per se, but because all of us can say, have that self-doubt? Am I doing the right thing? And so therefore, is it important, if I'm going to make my first million, to have somebody, not a coach, not somebody I pay, but somebody I can say, my friend, the bottles were the wrong shape. I mean, how important is that rather than keeping it all within yourself?
Yeah, 100%. What I did, and I talk about it in my book, it's all about the circles that we create around us. Back in the day when I started, there were no mentors. That word didn't even exist. And what I did, I had a group of women who were starting a business at the same time as me, and they were all startups. And we would get together at the Starbucks coffee shop, and we would talk to each other about what's going on and what we need and at what stage of my business I am. And there were informal gatherings we would have, or we would call each other. And I felt that group of support that I had around me was really important, because there were people who were going through similar challenges as I was going through. So for anyone starting a business, or anyone's going through any challenges in their life, finding that peer group, it's more important and easier sometimes than finding a mentor.
Because one of the things also that I like in the book is the fact that you say it's the network. It is turn your network into net worth and word of mouth. Because when you start a business, they'll say, yes, pay this, we'll get you buzzwords, we'll get you front of social media. But word of mouth is the best testimonial, advertising, marketing you can do. So if you have a group of trusted friends and they like what you're doing, should you be, not saying sort of sit on them until they say, but use your network, use your social network, use your family network, whatever, to get the message out there?
Exactly, especially in this day and age where everyone thinks everything is happening in the digital age. I plan to do 3 to 5 external meetings a week. Could be a coffee with a friend or a future associate or someone. I make a point to book 3 to 5 things a week, and every time I go, I take a little Rodial bag with me of products, a few pieces they can see, they can try, and especially in this age where we're all bombarded with social media, Instagram, paid ads. Having that face-to-face connection with someone related to the brand and getting a product and try it. And we turned so many of these people into customers in the future that ended up loving the products and buying them. But for me, one of the things of the book is networking, creating that real community, not a community of followers or fake followers or whatever you want to do online. It's creating that real community of people in your region that are going to support you. We're hosting events at Rodial. We probably do 5 to 10 events a year where we bring, whether it's the community, influencers, VIPs, we always host something all the time because I'm a big believer in real life connections that bring that result.
Because this is the thing, in a world where we are bombarded with business saying, we're number one in this and then, everybody knows that you're a successful business person. But if you put something back, if you do something for the community, if you do a charity event, it probably costs you less than a glossy advert in a magazine or a media campaign on social media, but people don't they? People like to get involved with something that is doing good, and especially now, Maria.
100%. And I remember before COVID, working with influencers was the be-all, end-all, and influencers would drive a lot of traffic, a lot of business. And now that return on investment isn't there. So the same influencer creates awareness, but they're not bringing the sales the same way they used to do during or before COVID. And actually doing events and bringing that community and making your community your advocates and the people who post about the product. And we did a pop-up last year with a coffee shop, and we immediately put tickets on Eventbrite. We sold out, and it was such a happy moment. People who have been seeing Rodial for years, and they were able to come in and touch and feel and get a matcha latte with the Rodial product. And it was those moments that you have to think a little bit out of the box on how to create that community. But again, going back to my book, How to Be an Overnight Success, there's a lot about how to network, tips on hosting, tips on creating a circle of people around you, and saying yes to opportunities. I used to be that person who was so busy and saying no to everything, and that made me lose a lot of opportunities and meeting people and opening new doors. And there was a point I decided I'm going to say yes to everything that comes my way, and let's see what happens. And you know what, Jai, since then, my life has changed. I'm meeting people. My life is more exciting. Having more opportunities. I mean, of course, 1 out of 10 of the places you go, it's going to be a total waste of time. And you're thinking, why am I here? Why am I doing this? But then the other 9 could lead to an introduction, could lead to an opportunity, or just having fun or learning about a new place. I think there's so much we can learn from everyone around us that we all need to make an effort and be out there a bit more. It's easy to be on a sofa and scroll on your social media all day, but what opportunities is this going to bring you? Whereas being out there, that face-to-face connection, especially now, it's super important. And I feel it's probably over 50% of everything I achieved is because I'm saying yes.
How much, though, is keeping to your plan? Because so many businesses, they have a little success at the beginning, and the next thing they're opening branches in Dubai, they're opening in Bali, they're opening in Marbella, and they overstretch themselves, and it's over. At the end of the day, you have to have a really good relationship. Either your accountant or yourself learn how to do it, because when people start putting in £5,000 sofas in their meeting, in the reception room, and they're just starting, you start to think, okay, maybe we just look at the finance and don't overextend too quickly.
I remember early on, I had an opportunity to work with a major chain of stores in Australia. And it was still very small. It was myself. I had a salesperson and an accountant, so a very small team. The opportunity came up. I said yes. And then I realized very quickly that I should have waited. I went to Sydney. We had a great event. Everything was great. But then the retailer was asking for 3-5-year plans. And I only had the plan for the next month. They were looking for marketing calendars. They were looking for a lot of things that a bigger company would have had, but I didn't. And because of that, within the first year, we lost the account. And since then, we weren't able to go back there again. So, and I talk about this, when are you ready to scale? And what are the things that we should be careful before we say yes to an opportunity? Because sometimes the opportunity is great, And sometimes it's let's just go and see what happens. But sometimes it's let's just wait a little bit longer until we're fully prepared to make sure that we give the best impression and we manage the relationship as best as possible. So, say yes, but also make sure you don't do anything that jeopardizes your long-term potential. That's my advice.
So we've got listeners listening in, and they're thinking, I've heard Maria speak. She's inspirational. I really want to go off and make my first bit. Apart from going to buy the book, what should be the second step after buying the book then that anybody should take if they want to go off on their own, if they want to have the exciting roller coaster ride that is running your own business or being self-employed or whatever?
What's interesting about the book, How to Make Your First Million, it's not about building a business, because not everyone is in a place they can build a business or they want to. There's a very interesting chapter about multiple revenue streams and how we can monetize what we have. And instead of focusing on one thing, let's say you have a full-time job, but then you have 3 other passions and hobbies, or you're expert on something, you can create a short course, or you can do something online, or you can go and give talks, or you can write a book, or you can have a small business that doesn't take all of your time, but can be another revenue stream. So that's an interesting chapter, revenue streams, that I feel that everyone can benefit. And there's another chapter where I talk about property, that I'm really passionate about property. I've started, my first investment was a tiny studio apartment on top of a pizza place, hardly glamorous. And then I talk about how I bought it, I refurbished it, stayed there for a few years, sold it, and then how I got on the ladder and expanded my property portfolio, and it all started from a small studio flat. And I do feel property is another exciting area that anyone can look into and invest in small steps that can also grow their portfolio and take them to that million, because property appreciates. If you look at it 5 to 10 years, holding a property, it will always appreciate. You're never going to lose money. I talk about the stock exchange, how I actually lost a lot of money, and I have an example there where I became greedy, and that's something that I feel I don't know enough to go back to the stock exchange, but I do mention that as well if anyone's interested. And these are some of the areas that I want anyone to read the book and think, I can do this and I can do this. And at the end, I have my top 100 list of how to get to that millionaire mindset, which are bits of actionable steps that you can implement any single day, immediately, now, and you can make an impact in your future. And maybe you don't make 1 million. Maybe you make, 100,000 pounds, 200, whatever. That's not bad. But I am giving you the steps to grow your portfolio and grow where you are and monetize what you have. And
more importantly, it will give you the same enthusiasm that you obviously have when you get up every morning, because you've been doing this now for a while. And it is absolutely clear that enthusiasm, which each day brings, that is worth $1 million in itself.
Exactly. Get you excited to come up, do your project, follow your passion, but then have the steps and the discipline to execute it so you can monetize it.
The book is called How to Make Your First Million, Build Wealth with Style and Audacity. It is by Maria Hatzistefanis. Maria, if people want to follow you online, can they find you on social media? It must be quite easy to find you.
Yes, I am on @Mrs. Rodial, MRS Rodial, on TikTok and Instagram. And I also have a book page that's called How to Make Your First Million. So
that's the way to find you. The book is called How to Make Your First Million. It's by Maria Hatzistefanis. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you this morning.
Thank you, Giles. It's been wonderful. Have a great day.